also, quite frankly, anyone who wants to take on ISIS and see them destroyed, the world, which was extraordinarily after 4 years, getting close to uniting, just simply on tackling ISIS, if not sorting out all of Syria, which is an even bigger problem. But there was a UN Security Council resolution on Friday authorising all means necessary to go and stop ISIS, which meant the RF could therefore go in with, say, David Cameron with all full legal cover. Now everything's up in the air again. My feeling is the vote will still go through because Paris means something to people still. But it is a terrible, awful mess. What we don't know is what Putin is going to do tomorrow. Putin is a man whose entire career he's built on Russian pride and Russian greatness in the world again and Russian strength. He lost the Metrojet airliner over Sinai a couple of weeks ago, a bad debt to Russian pride. He's now having one of his bombers shot down by the Turks.
A bomber that presumably was nowhere near actually firing on Islamic State at that moment. That's the point, isn't it?
Well,
no, that's the
argument.
argument.
They were fighting over Turkoman rebels who were fighting Assad, as is indeed as ISIS, but very, very different people. And the real problem is Syria and Syrian airspace at the moment, Turkish airspace, is unbelievably crowded. You've got at least 3 or 4 superpowers, everyone basically apart from China, operating extremely dangerous, expensive military equipment over there, dropping huge amounts of high ordnance. A lot of people are saying this was bound to happen sooner or later, this will escalate, and what on earth are we doing throwing RF jets there? I happen to think we need to get in there.
The question is 17 seconds is the report that, well, I think the Turkey has said it actually, 17 seconds that the Russian jet was in its airspace. Is it really worth all of this for 17 seconds? Or have they been buzzing the airspace for so long that actually it was...
Well, that's it. It's
inevitable.
It's not an accident. When 2 experienced fighter jet pilots fly into airspace for 17 seconds is quite a long time when you're in a jet that fast.
You're being warned multiple times.
And you're being warned multiple times, and you've got a trajectory of flight. This wasn't an accident. The Russians aren't saying it was an accident. They're saying they weren't there at all. And Turkey's saying, well, look, we've got the radar track. The US have come out saying that, yes, we heard the jet being warned. Now, the thing that makes it more complicated is that the 2 pilots ejected and then were shot dead in the sky by these Turkmen rebels.
If you go a little bit the inside of the Times, they've got a picture that really sums up the extraordinary... It's a big picture of a helicopter being blown up. So there's a Russian helicopter that went in to try and find their pilots, got itself shot down, and is here being destroyed by the rebels on the ground with an American-supplied missile, which really sums up the terrible confusion of what's precisely going on in Syria then.
We've run out of time, so I presume you want to do the cricket story, don't you?
I have to do the cricket story.
We're not going to talk about babies dying at the weekend. Because that's going to take 30 seconds to do that. Fair enough,
Of all the amazing news stories...
He was shot dead just over a year ago now, on October the 20th last year. Police have released the video of the moment the teenager was shot dead. This video was shot from the police squad car. The teenager was shot 16 times. The officer in charge, has been charged, I should say, Jason Van Dyke, has been charged with first-degree murder. I'm going to show a picture of him in just a second. This is the moment just before Laquan McDonald was shot dead. 16 times he was shot, and this is the officer, Jason Van Dyke, who has been charged with first-degree murder. So now that he has been charged, now that this video has been released, people are taking to the streets in Chicago. The numbers do appear to be growing. You can see there are hundreds of people on the streets. The police are expecting protests. In fact, the superintendent of the Chicago PD, Gary McCarthy, says the department is more than prepared to handle protests. But what he is saying is he wants people who come and protest to protest peacefully. At the moment, it does appear to be peaceful. There are a few people that appear to be breaking free, but most people do seem to be marching very peacefully. We'll be keeping an eye on this because obviously situations like this can turn very, very quickly. But at the moment, at least, things do seem to be pretty peaceful. So we can keep across this developing story, this protest in Chicago, over the next few hours here on Sky News. Chicago, don't go away.
So, southbound State Street at night.
Serious consequences after Turkey shoots down a Russian jet. Video emerges of a Russian helicopter scrambled to search for the pilots being destroyed by rebels in Syria. Chicago police shooting a white officer is charged with the murder of a black teenager. Showing a united front, France and the US agreed to step up airstrikes against Islamic State in Syria and Iraq. An image of a new suspect in the Paris attacks as it is revealed the ringleader returned to the scene of the massacre. Plus, welcome to World News. President Putin has condemned the shooting down of a Russian warplane by Turkey as a stab in the back. The incident has led to a major diplomatic confrontation, with Moscow warning it will have serious consequences. It's the first time in half a century that a member of NATO has downed a Russian plane. The jet came down close to the Turkish-Syrian border. Turkey says it warned the jet that it was violating its airspace, but both Moscow and the US claim the plane was over Syria at the time. Our Foreign Affairs editor Sam Kiley reports.
Crippled and on fire, a fighter jet blazes its way across the skies over Syria's border with Turkey. The Russian plane has been intercepted and attacked by Turkish F-16s before crashing into mountains on Syria's side of the border. Another camera captures the moment earlier when both aircrew bail out, their parachutes opening. Below them, the most chaotic battle space on Earth. Sometime later, 2 Russian helicopters are filmed. Search and rescue teams looking for the aircrew. Russia's defense minister has confirmed that at least 1 helicopter pilot was killed and his aircraft lost during the rescue mission. Syrian rebels have released this footage, we can't show it in full, of fighters celebrating over the body of a Russian airman. This film of them preparing to destroy one of the Russian helicopters. An American-trained fighter mounts an American anti-tank missile system. His target is down rescue aircraft. US-backed rebels using an American-made missile to destroy a Russian helicopter shortly after Turkey, a NATO ally, has brought down a Russian plane. Not a good day for Russian President Vladimir Putin, who can barely conceal his rage.
Today's event is a blow that has been given to us in our back by the accomplices of terrorists. That is the only way to qualify the event that took place today. Our jet was downed over the territory of Syria by an air-to-air missile of a Turkish F-16 jet. It fell on the territory of Syria, 4 kilometers from the border with Turkey. It had been flying at 6,000 meters, 1 kilometer away from the border. In no way did our pilots or our jet threaten the territory of Turkey.
Accused of helping so-called terrorists, Turkey's president defended his nation's actions.
The reason worse incidents have not taken place in the past regarding Syria is the cool-headedness of Turkey. Nobody should doubt we have made our best efforts to avoid this latest incident, but everyone should respect the right of Turkey to defend its borders.
Russian planes operating from their base in Latakia in northern Syria had entered Turkish airspace before, provoking fierce protests from NATO. But this is the first time one of its planes has been shot down. Anxious diplomacy swung into action to prevent an escalation to open conflict.
We stand in solidarity with Turkey and support the territorial integrity of our NATO ally, Turkey. Diplomacy and de-escalation are important to resolve this situation.
As Britain considers sending planes to fly missions in Syria, this bloody and muddled saga may give pause for thought. The skies over Syria are as crowded and complex as the war that rages below them. Sam Kiley, Sky News.
Let's get more on this then. Sam's been taking a more detailed look at why tensions are so high between Russia and Turkey on the border with Syria.
Well, it is a very, very complicated landscape that this latest incident has occurred in. Let's just look at the laydown of the different warring parties just in the Syrian battle space. This striped red area, that's Islamic State. The government, what's left of it, based out of Damascus, Bashar al-Assad's administration, the blue areas. But it's the yellow that really matter, because this is where the Russians have overwhelmingly been concentrating their airstrikes. They've been hammering the rebels fighting against the Bashar al-Assad regime. Only in the last week or so have they really been bombing in earnest against so-called Islamic State. And of course it is in this area exactly where this Russian aircraft was downed. Now let's take a look much more closely. Why was this area even being bombed by the Russians? Well, it's very close to Latakia. That is indeed where the Russians base their aircraft. It is also very much the heartland of the Alawite sect, which is underpinning the Assad administration, and it has been coming under heavy pressure, principally in this area, from Turkish-speaking Syrians who themselves are getting support from Turkey and the United States and others. Now let's take a look at some information that we got from the Turkish Ministry of Defense. This is what the Turks say was the flight path of two aircraft that entered Turkish airspace and crossed this tongue of land here. And it is in that location where they came under fire. They were only there for 17 seconds, and one of the aircraft was downed, crashing 4 kilometers just inside Syria's landscape. But now the issue is what has happened to the pilots. Very conflicting reports emerging from the ground there, and some doubt as to whether or not they're even alive or dead.
Well, a little earlier, Sky's Adam Bolton spoke to Sergei Markov. He's head of the Russian Public Chamber and former advisor to Vladimir Putin.
This situation has shown very well who support ISIS. Those who attacked Russian jets, in fact, support ISIS. Frankly speaking, we knew even before that terrorists from ISIS use Turkish territory as his homeland base. Most of the people also here believe that this attack from Turkish military have been organized by those illegal Turkish business who dealing oil trade with terrorists from Islamic State. So it's more or less realistic. We understand that this is the war. We're bombing terrorists, terrorists organizing attack against us.
But has Russia bombed the Turkmens, who apparently have destroyed a Russian helicopter and also shot the people who were escaping from the plane by parachute?
Russia didn't bomb the Turkmens. Russia bombed those organizations, including maybe Turkmens, who are loyal to the Islamic State. Russia building this jihadist, first of all, who is trying to establish this barbaric caliphate with the practice which they used to use.
Isn't the case, though, that the Turkmens are against the Islamic State as well? It's just that they don't support President Assad like Russia does.
Russia didn't fight for Mr. Assad, but Russia realistically understands that only Syrian army headed by Assad really fighting against Islamic State and partly Iraq army. And everybody knew, and we, frankly speaking, did told it publicly that Turkish authority create too good conditions for the Islamic State, and the Islamic State used Turkish territory for their military base. Now, it became open. I think Erdogan made a very big mistake.
President Obama has said tonight that Russia and Iran are two outliers, that 27 countries, including Britain, France, and the United States, are united fighting the Islamic State, and that Russia is not concentrating on that and should do so.
As everybody knows, Vladimir Putin, in his speech in New York on the plenary session of the General Assembly of United Nations, suggested that all leading countries should build anti-terroristic coalition. And as you know, United States denied to do it. We still play games with terrorists, as you frankly speaking, playing games with Adolf Hitler before Adolf Hitler attacked British Islands.
A white Chicago policeman who shot he was carrying. Well, in the dashboard camera video, the 17-year-old is seen running away after being confronted by police. It is claimed he had the hallucinogenic drug PCP in his system. Two officers then jump out of their car and draw their weapons while advancing towards McDonald. Within seconds, he is struck by bullets and falls to the ground. We've chosen not to show you those pictures. The prosecutors claim McDonald was shot 16 times by Officer Jason Van Dyke, emptied his gun and was preparing to reload his weapon. Van Dyke has said through his lawyer and the police union that the shooting was justified because he felt threatened by McDonald. He's been charged with first-degree murder. Well, Chicago's mayor has appealed for calm.
I understand that the people will be upset and will want to protest when they see this video. But I would like to echo the comments of the McDonald family. They have asked for calm, and for those who choose to speak out, do it peacefully. They said they do not want the violence to be resorted in Laquan's name, but let his legacy be better than that. It is fine to be passionate, but it is essential that it remain peaceful.
I'll take you to the scene then live in Chicago a little after 8 p.m. in the evening. As you can see, hundreds of people marching through the streets there in protest at what happened. So just to recap that story, Laquan McDonald was shot 16 times. The police believed he was under the influence of drugs when he was shot. They believed he was carrying a knife. He was shot 16 times. The video of the moment he was killed, filmed from the dashboard of that police car, was released. The police officer Jason Van Dyke has been charged with first-degree murder, and now people are marching. At the moment, it is a peaceful march. The superintendent of the Chicago PD says he is expecting protests. The police are more than prepared for these protests, but they want them to remain peaceful. And as you can see, they are at the moment peaceful, though we will be keeping a close eye on the story, because of course this is the kind of situation where things can change very quickly. Stay with us here on Sky News for more on that. Sky's David Blevins reports now from Washington, D.C.
Old allies facing a new danger. The dining of the Russian jet topped the agenda when the US president welcomed his French counterpart.
Please be seated. Turkey, like every country, has the right to defend its territory and its airspace. I think it's very important right now for us to make sure that both the Russians and the Turks are talking to each other, find out exactly what happened, and take measures to discourage any kind of escalation. The challenge has been Russia's focus on propping up Assad rather than focusing on ISIL.
The French are part of a US-led coalition. The Russians lead one of their own. France has been attempting to build a global alliance.
C'est vrai que le 11 septembre, tous les Français étaient américains.
It is true that after 9/11 the French helped Americans, and after the 13th of November the Americans helped the French. Our two people together merged as one, sharing the same emotion and determination to fight for our values. We share determination to fight terrorism everywhere and anywhere. We also want to tell the world that we will not allow
Can't
those
put the camera in the eye though,
we
can
have
you,
built
young
to do
liar?
so.
America shares intelligence with France, facilitating airstrikes. In order to do that with Russia, they differ on the role of the Syrian president. President Obama branded ISIS barbaric. He said the threat it posed couldn't be tolerated, and he called on the EU to implement a program for sharing airline passenger information in a bid to thwart the movement of terrorists. America takes the threat seriously. This is an active shooter and suicide bomb drill on the subway. The State Department has issued a global travel alert.
We have been hearing for the last several years that Al-Qaeda has been decimated, that ISIS is being contained. This travel warning seems to indicate that neither group is decimated nor contained, and that we really have our work cut out for us in terms of our broader counterterrorism policy.
With millions of people on the move over Thanksgiving, security is being strengthened at airports and train stations. The United States is on its guard. David Blevins, Sky News, Washington.